Another day of streaming. Not much to say other than I want to keep working on my little document rendering library. Get a sort of CAD system up and running soon, I hope. Been slowly plugging away at building an SVG wrapper over some things here. And now, today, it's a bit open-ended. I have to figure out kind of what I want to do next. I was, on my last stream, working a little bit on creating an idea for applying color and those sorts of details to a drawing. So I might work on that. I had an idea about maybe changing up how I do rotation for group elements. So maybe I'll actually start there. Let me think about this. We'll just get right into things again and just kind of see where the mind takes me. Right, so I've got... Let me focus in on... Let me clear this up a little bit more and get to work from here. I think that's pretty reasonable. Actually, what I want to do is change this G tag. Let's see if this works. We're going to... Actually, this has to be SVG slash color element with this set of color things. Then here, SVG slash G is this entire thing. Then it should just be that. I wonder if this will work. Not quite, which is okay. So let's have a look at this. Let's see what's going on here. Okay, all right, let's simplify this whole set of things here. Get it back down to just a small subset of things. How about that? Let me actually just do this. Let's leave it only at that. There, we'll get rid of the... go like this. Okay, so an SVG element, and let's just see here. We'll go there, translate, color. This should theoretically render. It does. Okay, cool. So here we see the only other thing I need here is stroke and stroke width 2 pixels. That should work. It does. Cool. So let me see if 2, yeah. Cool. Sweet. Oh, another thing I could start to do is add a higher level. This might be kind of fun. I might well, let me get into that in a minute. Hey Mike, Glad to see you. How's it going today? Things are okay for me. I'm kind of coming in a little blind, to be honest. I don't have a clear plan about what I need to do next, but I've got a few ideas, and I might just kind of sort of see where things go from there. How are you doing? Nice to have you back. Let's see here. Awesome. I actually do wonder if it would be a good idea for me to do stuff like so one thing I haven't included in my base shapes here yet, living in a nightmare of debugging SQL, descending into madness. Oh man, my deepest sympathy for you. My SQL nightmare is always related to when I was working at so I'm a mechanical engineer by schooling, so I ended up in engineering kind of places, right? And what often happens is you have people who use Excel for basically everything. So my SQL nightmares always were around creating query strings that would pull in from some database. You have to make sure you have the right database connection. You design a query string to pull into Excel, and then try to figure out what people wanted to do with VLOOKUPs and VBA, and it was not fun. So my sympathy for you. Even if you're not working with Excel and all that, debugging SQL stuff can be problematic. Good luck. Good luck to you. Right, so this composites thing I might put away for now. The one that's actually really useful is arrow. And label kind of isn't, I don't think this is a good idea for me to keep anymore, so I might just delete that one. Yeah, sounds like it would give me nightmares too. The thing about it is that, like, well, it's super frustrating, right? But the reason people end up doing that, using Excel to get their data and all that, it makes complete sense. So on one hand, you want things to be done nicely, right? But on the other, I completely understand why people just want to have a thing that works so that they can do their job, right? But it ends up being nightmarish is the right way to describe it. That's all right. Okay, yeah, let me, oh, actually, while I'm thinking about this, oh, that's weird. Well, whatever. I'm just remembering that I want to push some of this to the GitHub for a minute. Ugh, my head's not in the game yet. I'm fumbling around a little bit here. Okay, let's get rid of the label. And arrow's a work in progress, but it has this nice, actually maybe I should revisit arrow. Although I've made a decision, the next thing I'm going to do is poke around with path, Bezier curves, and arcs, because I think it is a good idea to have those functions available. That seems like a good approach. Seems like a good idea. But save this, git add. Okay, so I pushed to GitHub there. That just make me also realize another thing I have to do is I do really have to figure out and make it clear to myself and others what my real goal / goals are for this library after all, right? Like it's let's see here. Can I come up with a pithy one-sentence thing? This library is no. I want to blend CAD and documentation into one simple, powerful, useful, and open library. Stylo approaches this problem by using the by assuming the document is the design, including prose, interactive elements, and 2D, 3D figures. Export into popular formats is a must. Oish. Anyway, point is, I have to figure out kind of the goals, figure out what that means for the kind of license I put into the thing. Right now, there's no license on the GitHub, which technically means that no one can use it, as far as I understand, right? It's there to be looked at, but technically, without a license, I hold the copyright, which means by default I can't give it out. So if I were to put the MIT license in there, for example, then suddenly it could be forked and modified freely. I haven't done that because I don't think anyone's actually looking yet. It's not at a state where even I consider it realistically useful, and I don't know specifically what I want, but those are things that are going to have to come up in my mind. So I really think I should clean up my prose further and make, actual blog posts and other videos for it and stuff, but I'm just thinking out loud. I guess that's one of the biggest it's one of the most common things for me to do on this stream, is just think out loud, verbalize and explain my thought process as I go. Might be strange for other people watching sometimes, but it's like weirdly really helpful for me, so I'm not going to complain about it. Hopefully it's valuable, at least in part, to other people. Let's see here. Good. All right, so path. Let's focus in a little bit here, and let's see if I can implement. All right, let's go. Oops. Okay, transforms are what they are. Let's go here, make a little bonus section, and we'll call it what do we call it? Path. The path element has a small domain-specific language to create compound curves. This includes this includes the following. Taken from, and then here I'll put the link in there. Oh, I always forget my copy-paste keyboard shortcuts, because in the context of this Emacs it uses Control, but in the context of Mac system-wide it uses the Command key. But with my keyboard, with this particular keyboard, it has a Windows key right here. So I just get completely and utterly confused. Which is silly, right? I don't really technically need to look at my keyboard. I haven't trained out of looking at my keyboard from time to time, so these are just my bad habits showing themselves. Okay, right, so we can, let's see, what does this look like? Oh, hey, that actually looks okay. Neat. So, so there, that's good enough for that. Let me Clojure, tangle this into, where's the source? We'll tangle it into the same file there. That's fine. Wonder how many, let's have a look here. Oh, it does tangle empty. Cool. Let's see, how big is this SVG file? Pardon me. It is 576 lines, eh? Wow. I would imagine there's a lot that I can clean up about this. Like so comments, for example. I could probably massively simplify quite a few things, but that's okay. Lines of code isn't really a great indicator of much anyway, so it's just a curiosity more than anything. Let's close that. Okay, so let me think about this now. Right, so I have the generic path function, which takes a string that gets put into the key D here, which is the property name to produce, right? Path D equals this string, which gets parsed by the path element there. So I could, what I could actually do is make, I'm not going to do this because I'm not sure that it's intuitive, but I could theoretically make just a kind of a wrapper over the path DSL only, and then re-implement all of the shape elements except for text, of course. Technically even text if you make a whole font parsing thing, but I could create a circle by using the path element and let's see here, elliptical arc, right? And then I could make a line. A line obviously is just a move to line 2. It's very easy to make a line that is a path. Path is obviously path. Polygon and polyline, also easy, right? A path string that's derived from the same list as a polyline, and you just don't close the path, will create the same thing. Rectangle, again, I could easily make with a path, and text obviously you can't. and then G is not quite the same thing. So it might be kind of a cool exercise to do everything pathwise, because it might actually simplify a thing or two later. So I'm going to keep that in mind, but it's also good, I think, that to have gone through and made all of the regular element functions as well. So I don't think it's a waste of effort or anything. But anyway, right, so let's start with elliptical arc. How about that? Bezier curves, yes. Let's see here. Yep. Let's see what the arc example is here. Let's also let's see, so I'm at w3.com here, but let's see if does this have a link to like the actual proper I don't need to get certified with anything. This doesn't seem to, well, okay. Different one here. Maybe this has some insight for me. Line commands. Good. Horizontal path. Okay, curve commands. Okay, so an arc, path tools, yeah. Yeah, so the math behind Bezier curves is a whole other thing, which I'm definitely not going to tackle today, but it's actually a fun exercise to implement a Bezier curve. I have a really gross implementation that I did in Clojure in another library. It's not on GitHub or anything. I found it hard because all of the algorithm implementations for Bezier curves use mutable data structures, and I had to try and figure out a way to do it immutably, which I'm sure is possible in a nicer way than I've done, but it's been it's a journey. Anyway, that's a fun problem for another day. In particular because I want to implement it for 3D as well, not just 2D. Okay, let's see here. So Bezier curves, I just want to see arc for now. So there's smooth curves and Bezier curves. They're the same math underlying it, but they just specify different control points is what it looks like. Q, that's fine. Cubic Bezier, there's a shortcut. Okay, arcs, here we go. The A command, arcs are sections of circles or ellipses. For a given x and y radius, there are two ellipses that can connect any 2 points, as long as they're within the radius of the circle. Along either of those circles, there are 2 possible paths that can be taken to connect the points. So in any situation, there are 4 possible arcs available. Yep, okay. Because of that, arcs require a few parameters. Oh, Not how I thought it would be implemented, but that is no problem. Okay, our X, our Y, or X-axis rotation, large arc flag, sweep flag, XY. Wow, okay. The arc element takes in 2 parameters for X and Y radius, like an ellipse. The final 2 parameters are the X and Y coordinates to end the stroke. Okay. Not sure I understand it yet, but I'll get there. Right, okay, so I need to actually read this a little more thoroughly to understand what's going on, but that's okay. So what I can do is actually right away I can make this here. If I do svg/path and I just take, I can copy and paste one of these here. Let's do this just to see if we get classic copy paste error. There we go. Okay, so this should work hypothetically. It does not. Why would that be? Interesting. What has happened? Let's find out. Label does not exist. Oh, shoot. I deleted label a little too quickly, huh? That's fine though. Let's have a look. That's gonna be in here. Draw, namespace, label, just get rid of it. That's okay. That is right. I'm still in the early stages where things break and I forget that that's true, so things are gonna happen. Okay, something's wrong, which is good, kinda. So we have, man, I use label way more than I thought I did. This was a mistake. Right, so label only takes some text, which is actually the same as my text call. So I could, I mean, it's got different formatting, but I'm going to be okay with that for now. I could just stub it for the time being and fix all the calls to it a little later. So that's the lazy part of me is going to do that. Right, so here, let me just do this. Define label. Let's see here. Text. Define label as something that takes text, and then it just passes the call t like that. That should fix these warnings, I think, because now there is the function. There we go. Okay, so we've got something. Now we need to see what's happening here. Oh, yes, of course. So this call to translate here is going to break the path because the way I'm doing it now, I set it up to parse the path thing, but only assuming that it's always a closed path of just straight points. So it totally destroys the arc and produces a meaningless result, or a non-useful result. So that is something to fix, and I can do that in a moment. There we go. Okay, we're in the money. Okay, perfect. So we've got some idea of an arc that works, and now I just have to figure out how it actually does work. That's all. Okay, so oops. Well, let's think about this for a moment. If I do this, if I don't close it with the Z there, and if I take the line off entirely, whoops, I need most of that there. Yes, okay, so if I add a Z here, yeah, okay. So let's get rid of the Z. What if I change this to 90? Interesting. Let's make this 250. Okay, so that is not a one-to-one scaling situation. This here, if I don't move at all, where does that leave me? Gone. I see nothing. Okay, so let's Right, so this is me not actually paying attention. I'm just fiddling and moving things around randomly. If I do that, then it shows up in the spot again. So if I oh, wait, no. Right, okay. Let's learn about it properly, huh? All right, let's figure it out this way. Try to read this again and understand it. For a given x radius, y radius, there are two ellipses that can connect any 2 points as long as they're within the radius of the circle. Along either of those circles, there are two possible paths that can be taken to connect the points, for a total of 4 possible arcs. Right, so so why are there two ellipses that can connect any 2 points? Okay, well, ignore that and we'll just keep on reading here. So x-axis rotation okay, let's see if I can move move 10, 10 is good. Let's say I want just a quarter of a circle. That means these two numbers will have to be the same. Let's do 50-50 for simplicity there. And that would mean that I want these to, the end point to be 60-60, is that correct? Let's see what shows up here. Okay, so that's looking kind of right. Let me add a line in for a minute to 60-10, I think, right? Yeah. Sweet, and then Z closes that. Okay, so this kind of makes sense to me right now. So you've got 50-50 here is the, if this were a full circle, that would be the radius of x and radius of y. So if I were to make this 100, this is still going to be 50 this way, but then this is now going to be 100 this way, which means I want the end point y to be 110, and I'm adding 10 just because I've offset the start point to 10, 10 here. And that should result in something that, yeah, okay, we're on to something. kinda. So, the thing I don't understand yet, and I'll just kind of figure it out as I go, is these other parameters here. We've got, where'd the parameter list go? Here we are. Pardon me. Excuse me. Right, so okay, so x-axis rotation. Let's change that and see what changes, because I can't quite visualize that. Okay, so that changes right, so that's changing the angle of the whole ellipse. And then this is the, does this invert it? It does nothing, because I'm not sure I'm doing the right thing yet. So this, actually, while I'm here, let's copy paste that again. Wrong button, always wrong. Copy that, paste that bad boy. Right, so we've got large arc flag. Okay, let's leave this rotation. So if I make this 90, actually, that didn't work. No, it didn't save. Okay, so this here, if I make this back 50-50, that should mean that this doesn't change anything, but it does, and I don't know why. Oh no, it doesn't. Oh, of course, this should be 60-60 here, if I want an even arc. And then this rotation should not make any difference. It should be any number, and it makes no difference because it's an actual circle here, which makes complete sense. This only comes into play when we're manipulating the angle of an ellipse. So if I do this, it will change the kind of bulge of that, which is perfect. Okay. Okay, wait. That's the inner, okay, right. So now if I do 1, 0, we should see the, yeah, that kind of makes sense. Let's not close it, nor do we want the line there for the time being. Right, so 0, 0. If I do the sweep, it kind of flips it around. 1, 1 makes that 1, 0. Okay. Okay, so we can Let me make a minimal example here. Let's do arc string. How about that? And it's going to take the let's move this to 200, 200 for now. This I'll adjust in a moment. Actually, if I do this, lowercase a, sweet. Okay, so if I make it capital A, the reason that's changing is because capital letters in this DSL mean the absolute coordinate. So this A changes this 60 and 60 to be 60, 60 relative to the full SVG container, which is right here. And I do believe I can show that by doing svg/translate to 60, 60, a small circle of radius 2. No. Right. Way to mess something up here. Is this gonna work? Hey, kinda. Okay, so that was a bit of a silly approach. Alright, let's undo that. That was silly of me. Okay, so here we have this color element won't work, but that's fine. We're just going to move this here. There we go. Okay, so this circle, right, let me make it a little bigger. Just is marking the 60-60 spot here, but if I make this a lowercase a here, I'm going to preempt this. That will now be at 260, 260. Yes, there we go. So that's the difference between the absolute and the relative. So this is absolute and this is relative. Perfect. Anyway, so using the relative thing here as a basis, let's imagine an arc string function that takes the radius, leaving everything else 0. I'm just trying to simplify things down to the most basic here. So 50-50 should be a quarter of the circle. Ah, yeah, and then 150 should be that's interesting. That's not what I expected. What I thought is it would be half a circle. Okay, so that's not totally right. Okay, I'm fine with that. I can work with that. 100, 0. Yes, okay. Okay. That would then mean that 50 no, 20 no, that's right. 50x and then -50 in the y. Is that 3/4? It would be 3/4 of it, but at that point you have to flip some of the flags, right, to get the 3/4. This is more complicated than a little more complicated than I thought, which is totally fine. I just have to figure out kind of the right approach I want to take. So if I do absolute, this is going to be totally wacky. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, okay. So this flag is literally just, so there's going to be two circles that you could draw from, right? It's either this one, it changes which circle you want to draw from, you want to actually draw, and then this one is whichever circle you've picked. If this is a 1, use the larger arc. If it's 0, use the smaller arc. And then this, yeah, so you can, that's why, so if I were to flip both of these around, I'd get the same shape arc but mirrored, almost. My understanding's a little bit off. If I go like this though, save that. Okay. 1, 0. There we go. So I've got both sides of that drawn there. So then if I do 0, 0 and 1, 1, that flips them both. 1, 0, 0, 1. Yeah. Oops. Wait, what? There we go. Okay. Right, so yeah, so this is an example, okay? So we're using, so if I do 0 here and 0 here, this means use the first circle that it could be between this point and this point, and this one means use the large circle, so it'll be this, it'll actually be like this. Let's also get rid of those, I don't need them. Right, and then this one is use the first circle and then use the smaller arc between those points. Okay, that makes a bit of sense to me. Now the thing is, let me see now if I can make a complete circle with this arc tool. Let's see if I understand it. Oh, I'm also gonna get rid of this and get back to just one. Okay, so here we are. Excuse me. 1. Ah. Okay, so that's how you can get close to a circle, but 0 values don't actually work, and that changes its position. Okay. I have to go to the washroom. Won't be long. Well, so the obvious, like the easiest thing is to literally just make the function 1 to 1. So arc string is just going to take Rx, Ry, x degrees, large arc, sweep, right? And then literally all I do is string of interpose space characters between all of those things. Forgot to mention this when you hopped on. There's a pretty neat lecture on YouTube from the creator of Clojure. You haven't gone through it all yet? You mean, so the creator of Clojure, you're talking about Rich Hickey? And like basics of Clojure? I've seen a bunch of his videos, so I may have seen the one you're referring to, but he's done a few different lectures and talks. I find him to be an interesting thinker and a pretty good communicator, so his talks are pretty nice. But I don't know which one you're referring to specifically. Feel free to share it. Clojure Made Simple, yeah. Yeah, I've seen, actually, you know what, now that you say it, I've probably seen him, but it has been a while, and I probably could do with taking some more thorough notes on it. But there's another, this is, I think, perhaps one of Rich's most well-known talks, Simple Made Easy. It's not what you're referring to. Clojure Made Simple, I think, is a bunch of smaller lectures. But if you're ever in the mood for a nice sort of higher level thing, this I do believe is, there's Rich himself. Yeah, this talk is a, nice one. So he talks about right here, simplicity as contrasted with the idea of simple versus easy, how they're not the same thing. Anyway, that's a different talk entirely. The Clojure made simple ones are actually good for me to keep in mind. So let me, oh, it's been a while since I pulled up my notes. Let's just see here. Let's just do this. I'll just leave it as a tab. Watch that one for sure. Yeah, it's so if you stick around different parts of Clojure online, you're bound to run into it. I would be very surprised if you don't see someone mention that talk at some point. It's a good one, and it's actually what I like about Rich too is the way he talks is beyond Clojure as a single language, right? He talks more about these ideas at all, right? You don't have to know Clojure to get value from what he's saying, which I think is a nice way to do things. But anyway, the Clojure made simple stuff. Heard of it? Gonna have to give it a look. So I do think I've seen it, but it's been a while for sure. So thanks for the little reminder. It's never bad to go back and kind of make sure you do truly understand some of the more fundamentals, you know, because it's very easy to think you understand things and then actually not. So I'll have to check it out. Okay, interpose. Let me see if this is actually going to produce the string that I expect it to. Okay, so, oh, I also have to do this. Whoops. Okay, so if I do arc string and I want to give it, I want to try produce this. Actually, no, let me, one day I'm going to actually have a proper name for this little toolbox here. ASDF app is not very not very professional. It's pretty funny, but obviously not sufficient. Let's make this 0, 0. No, let's make it 1 because it's more fun. Actually, let's do yeah, cool. Right, so if I call this function with the radius x 50, radius y 50, the x degrees is 0, the large flag is 1, the sweep flag is 1, and the x end is 50 and 0 is the y. Oh. I have to apply string to that. There we go. Cool. Is that right? If I copy and paste this into this part here, we should see that it is indeed equivalent. Okay, so if I now run this with a 0, 0, I should copy this, paste this. This should make, I think, if I'm understanding it, the small arc right here. So let's see. Yes, it does. Okay, so what am I actually trying to accomplish with this, right? Like, this is really confusing to me, and I don't think I'm ever gonna draw arcs that way. So how do I do it instead? So what I do want, how my brain does kind of think of an arc is actually you give it the start point, you give it the end point, and then you give it what do you give it then? You can give it a if it's just a circle-based arc, you could just give it a single radius and then just assume, yeah, you can always assume a clockwise definition. So it always draws from the first point to the second point. So if you need to flip it around, you flip your points. Does that make sense? No, because that doesn't consider the fact that a user might actually want the other side of it, right? So, boy, this is surprisingly complicated to come up with a simple way to do arcs. One thing I do like is the 3-point circle or 3-point arc. And what I mean by that is you can fully specify any complete circle or ellipse with, wait, can you do an ellipse? Boy, this is actually, like, drawing curves is actually pretty complicated. Funny how that goes, eh? That's okay though. That's part of the deal here. I'm making CAD stuff, so it's inevitably going to be a little complex from time to time, and I'm fine with it. Let's see if there's an example of what I mean. If I do circle from 3 points, circle defined by 3 points. Yeah. Right, so if you give 3 points that aren't all on a line, you can find you can get its center, its radius, and perimeter, of course. And then an arc, what you could do is specify an arc as the circle that hits 3 points but is drawn only up to the 3rd point you provide it. And then the user can theoretically create, if you enforce a rule like this will only draw the shortest arc through these points, that forces the user to, if they need to draw a large one, they just have to use a point on the opposite side of the circle or something like that. So that could work. It's not bad, but that's different semantics than the arc command of the SVG path thing, right? So we're slipping beyond, and I've done this before already, right? Like my SVG wrappers are not quite, they're not a one-to-one semantic match to how SVG works, because I made certain decisions about the scale and rotate transformations that take into account the center point of the thing that you're scaling, so, or rotating. So I already broke like it's not one-to-one in terms of the drawing semantics anyway, so should I even care? I don't have a clear answer, but part of my brain is saying don't worry about it anymore. This stuff is difficult. I just want easy. Easy is not part of the game. Okay, so I do have, I've got a list of to-dos there that I haven't looked at in a while. Probably a lot of interesting stuff that I forgot about in there. The builder is fine for the time being. Draw. This might have parametric in it. It does. Okay, so This line intersection function should probably go into my geometry. This function definitely needs to be all fixed up. It almost certainly doesn't work anyway with, I'm not even sure I have all the functions anymore. I might have deleted them there. The math is always the hard and tedious part. Well, so what I don't mind math so much, but I do get scared's not the right word. I get stressed out thinking about, okay, if I'm a user and I want to draw an arc, right? Like an arc is like a simple thing in terms of if you have a piece of paper and a pen, you can go whoosh, and you draw this curve shape, right? But then drawing it precisely on in a computer system actually does require, like this, for example, seems really straightforward, but it needs all of this data, and most of these things are 0 or 50, right? But you need to know what that means up front. So the math behind it all is one thing, but how you expose the options to a user is a different thing, right? It's not a mathematical choice, it's sort of a knowledge expectation choice. And that's the stuff that is like hard for me to think about sometimes, right? Like, so even the rotate function for my SVG wrapper thing, right, uses degrees, which goes from 0 to 360. But you know, you could say, well, should it use degrees or should it use radians, right? So radians, you know, uses math.pi, right? And oops. And they're both valid, it's just hard to make the choice, you know? There, pi. Right, what might be intuitive for one user might not be for another, and you can never make all the users happy, just an impossible task. Yeah, that's the thing, right? And that's actually totally right. You can't make everyone happy, so you kind of got to wonder, okay, what kinds of people should I care about making happy? Which is a weird way to think about it sometimes, right? And I mean, maybe happy isn't totally the right word. But you want to thread the needle between ease of use and understanding versus actual power as well, right? Like, if I wanted to have users just use their computer for design work with the most possible power, I wouldn't bother making a library. I would just say, learn how to program, learn how to do math, and then learn how to make your own CAD software. But that's obviously not a tenable solution, right? So there's some degree of built-in decision to let a user use a thing powerfully, but not have to build literally everything themselves. And so I just this arc command is a microcosm of the of these challenges. I'm not shying away from them. I just am realizing how important it is to think about these things. At least, in my opinion, it's important to think about. But if I were to imagine myself using some CAD tool, I mean, eventually I want to kind of provide a few different ways to draw arcs, but the one that I think makes sense in my brain is this 3-point arc method. And the reason I say that is if you draw, like imagine, right, if I'm going to this little draw toolbox here, imagine I want to draw an arc and I click 3 points and it immediately draws a curve into the, like, between them, right? That feels like it would make immediate sense to the user, right? Imagine if there were an arc from this point to through this point and ending at this point. Then all you do is move this, and you can see the circle changing its shape, and you know that, oh, well, this is the start of the curve and this is the end of the curve, right? Like, that just feels like it would be the most intuitive, and that really is where my decision is coming from, right? But I'm making an argument about feelings, right? Not about technical correctness, right? Because there are other equally correct approaches. It's just an argument based on how I would feel when I use the tool. I'm comfortable with that, but it's not a strong argument, you know? But that's the way it goes. And I'm okay with it. And let me see if I already have this math done, actually. Let me see here. That's how most drawing software draws arcs, right? If you follow the norm, it would be fine. People who use the software would get it. It might be how things are done. It's been a little bit, actually, since I've used SolidWorks, and I don't entirely remember. I do believe, let me see here. Let's see if I can do, pull up a visual example quickly. So this isn't SolidWorks, but it's parametric modeler, really powerful software. Technically all open source. Actually, maybe I should poke around with this again. It's been a while. I'm not going to install it right now. I'm just trying to look for screenshots. Features. To answer your question about if that's how most software does it, I think you're probably right. I just don't remember for sure. It's either that or they do or they use some kind of like center point, radius, and then the end point. So it still uses 3 points of data, but it's a little bit different in the kind of way in which it's drawn, but I don't entirely remember. Screenshots, let's see. I'm just looking for a screenshot of the toolbar of this software here. See if that provides any, well, that doesn't help. Yeah, no, I'm not getting anything useful out of this right now. I am definitely getting an itch to try this out, though. Maybe that'll be kind of a fun bonus stream to design something in FreeCAD. This is pretty neat. Like, it actually looks better and better. Powerful stuff. Ooh, a guitar. Wild stuff. That looks like a Raspberry Pi case or something, maybe. I'm wasting my own time right now. Sorry about that. I'm just trying to see if, without actually installing anything. Yeah, so the 2D sketcher isn't in view here. 3D printers? Man, oh man, people are really using this for powerful stuff. Okay, here, this is just a rough idea. If I zoom in here, I think this button is an arc drawing button, and it looks like it's based on center point, and then you give it a radius, or center point, yeah, start point, end point, which is different than the 3-point method, but similar in feel. So a little different, but probably just as intuitive at the end of the day. Yeah, so there's another. So this toolbar, if I had to guess, this is just a line tool, polyline, circle tool, arc tool, ellipse tool, polygon, regular polygon tool, rectangle tool, text, dimension, and this is probably Bezier Curves. That's probably Bezier, and this is just a point. That's probably, oh, and they've got Stormtrooper. I don't know. I don't know what that means. Okay, this is on my list for things to poke around with again. I used to actually do a bit of FreeCAD stuff with Python scripting, but it's been a long time. It'd be fun to get back into though. I kind of think it'd be fun to mix it up for different stream types, you know, a little bit, maybe. Here I am rambling once again. Okay, enough of that. Enough of that. Let's go. Let's get back into something. Just stretching. All right. Let's focus in a little bit here. Let's try and see if I can come up with something that makes a useful arc string. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna make, since this is all still prototype level work, I'm gonna go into the path here. The arc implementation I'm gonna work on. So this arc string function could be useful just for building it out. I'll just leave it that way for now. If I do define arc P1, P2, P3, let's go ahead and build out. Let's attempt to build out this bit of math that properly makes that arc for me. So in order to do that, I will need to edit my geometry thing here, maths, to radians, bounding block center, distance, determinant, and the cross product. Probably should use the full name for det to determinant, but I'll change that later because I don't want to track down where I've used that at the moment. Okay, let's go. Let's blow off the dust from this old thing and see if I have circle related stuff here. Oh, see, a lot of this is stubbed out still. It's been a while since I've gone into this. That's okay. Geometric curves. There's a bit of promise here. Polyline, polygon, circle, arc. Ooh, okay. So I've got parameter estimations, Bezier. Right, so I had worked on this a little bit before. This is another prototype library that I don't have on GitHub. Probably needs a bit of rework in and of itself, but this was a CAD heavy, I kind of want to call it a kernel, but kernel's not, it's not that thorough, so it's not fair to say it. But this rough implementation of an arc does also do point A, point B, point C. And what it does is make a circle function, right, where this function actually is here, and it returns, it's a higher order function. So it's a function that returns a function, which is a parametric function for a circle. It technically works in n dimensions, although it only makes intuitive sense to me in 2 and 3 dimensions. Center from point seems useful, and radius from point seems useful. So let me go find those functions and see if I should copy paste them in there. Actually, you know what? Let me change this around for a minute here. Okay. Here we are. Math. I should split this. Bounding box, 2D. Wait, is that true? Yeah, it is. But we'll leave it there for now. Bounding box. Here's a split. What do I call these? These are geometry slash linear algebra. This is linear algebra. I have no idea if these headings really make sense or if they're just going to confuse me more. But for the time being, I want to split them out a little bit. And so I can copy here radius from points and center from points into these into this library here. So I'll go ahead and do that. So utilities. Oh dear. Oh yeah, I had worked on this. I don't think works perfectly, but I had also started work on comparing two float values, because doing all of this math ends up with floats a lot, and you really you can't reliably test floats against things easily. Like if you consider 1 times 10 to the negative 17 close enough to 0, right? You need a way to reliably say, is this value nearly equal to 0? And differently, is this value nearly equal to this value? If they're both really tiny or both really large, it gets really messy. So I was trying to implement this a bit, but it's not reliable enough. So comparing floats doesn't matter for me right now, because I can't do it successfully. Helpers here, some exponent, clamp. Ooh, clamp actually does seem probably like a good idea. So let's go ahead and do that. Let me see that makes sense. Clamp. And it works. Okay, let's clamp 10 between 0 and 11. It should just return 10. So, but if I clamp 20 between 0 and 11, this should return 11. And if I do negative 20, it should return 0. Okay, so that is what I'm looking for there. Okay, that's useful. But whatever. That's not actually what I'm looking for at the moment. So position, link, unlink, geometry stuff. Determine if a point is on a line. That'll actually be, I do need to know this. And then I'm gonna see if it works. Okay, so I can actually clean this function up a little bit, but if I let me call it point on line, and let's test it. Oops. Well, okay. I'm gonna have to work this a little bit, but can you run equal on yeah. Okay, this is not going to work because this will not return integer 0 values. But this is basically saying, all this is checking, okay, if you run this, what is this here? Right, the vector from A to the point and the vector from B to the point, if you do the cross product of those, you will get 0 if the point is on the line, in infinitely long line, right? So that just means if you've got like it would be if you ran point on line for the point 1 1 and the line 0 0 5 5, this would return true because obviously this here is a diagonal line going from 0 0 directly to 5 5, and you're checking if this point 1 1 is on that line, and since it's the 45-degree diagonal, this obviously is on it. So if this function were properly defined, which it isn't, it would return true, right? But it's not defined, so but here if I, oh really? I thought I had, oh, it's below it. Classic. If I go like this, oh shoot, I'm in the wrong namespace as well, which is unfortunate. Shoot. Well, that polluted the namespace a little bit, but I'm okay with it for the time being. Okay, so if I actually well, things are going wrong and I'm gonna have to fix it, but since I've derailed myself a little bit here, let me go ahead and get these functions into where I want to work on them anyway, and I'll go from there. Okay, geometry, point on line, radius from points, center from points. Oh, I should copy the source URL that I had as well. Okay, so let's be happy with that for now. And we'll go here, close that. All right, we're back in action. Okay, we are in a state of potential usability. We'll see what happens. Okay, that's good. Zip this open a little more here. Okay. All right. Let's have a look. Let's try to load file source slash stylo slash geom.cljc. No symbol on line. Oh yeah, right. So I have to change this point on line like that, and here as well. And that might fix something. Let's see what goes wrong now. No D. Is this actually the determinant? I have to see. Maybe I named this incorrectly. Let me find out though. Forge.org. Let's see here. No, they're different, right? Well, let's see. Let's keep trying things here. No symbol square. Where did I put square? I've got, why did I do this? Is that useful, actually? Well, I mean, there's no reason not to, really. Okay, that seems to work. Definitely room to clean all this up, which is totally fine. That's kind of why I'm bringing it in anyway. There's no reason not to start there and then clean it up as I go. I always forget what like the official proper definition of determinant is, so I never remember exactly where it's useful. So some of these things are like I remember learning them, but forget the correct details, which is a little nerve-wracking. But for the time being, I am able to implement some of the basics and get useful results. So it's just a matter of going back as I write more thorough documentation about these implementation ideas, making sure I understand it well enough to write the documents, and then in that process likely discover some other bugs or logic errors or things like that. So that's it sounds like a cop-out, but that's part of the process. The only thing is you have to actually write it out, and that's sometimes the hard part. Okay, so I have a little bit of mathematical equipment now that I can theoretically pull in. So if I now do, okay, so the functions are working. And now if I do g/center from points, right? If I make, well, let's see if this even works at all. So the center of what 3 points should I test? 0, 0. Let's do 50, 50. Okay, so we've got 0, 0, 50, 50, and we'll do 100, 0. The center of that should be 50, 0. We have an error, which is not bad, but not good either. Okay, so there's something wrong in the cross product approach. And let's see, we can have a look at that. It's going to be here. Oh, here, see this? 3D vectors. I did not generalize it. But what I can do is just cheese it. And here we have exactly the potential issues with floating point, right? So I said that with these 3 points here, the center of them, assuming it's a circle that you're drawing through them, is going to be at 50, 0, which is what we see if we round this up to 50, right? So I have 49.99999. And right away I cannot do, right, if I do equals 50 first from this answer, it's going to be false, because of course it is. But if I do round that, round the number and the places to 0 places. I forget how I wrote my round function. Oh, see? Yeah. Okay. So if I test this again, that's true. But so in order to get that to be a truthy equivalence, right, I have to know already that I need to round the result to a certain set of values to be able to get the right answer, right? Which isn't, it's not a good thing. Right, because you're not gonna know in the running environment what's going on. Whoa, what? Here's also an example of something that totally broke. Right, if I round this to an insane amount, you just get a wrong answer. So there's all kinds of things like that that are very clearly wrong and gonna break things. So a lot of work to do. And I can't even fathom why it's related to how my round function is implemented, because I multiply the result times basically I do basically reduce range from 1 to whatever the round number is. Like imagine it was 7. I don't remember how I did it, but I'm being silly now. Anyway, I basically, if it's 7, I multiply the number by 10 to the power of 7 and then divide it by 10 to the power of 7 after I round to that point. So if you multiply it by this massive number, you get this really weird floating point error after you make it too long. It's a whole thing. Okay, so calculates the cross product of two 3D vectors. Where am I even going with this today? That's okay. We'll just slap it together and go from there. So I have path, that's what I'm looking for. Okay, arc, here we are. P1, P2, P3. Let radius be, oh, I have to actually check. I yammered on about all this. Let me check radius from points. 50, perfect. Okay, so let R be G slash radius from points. And it takes P1, P2, P3. So that's the radius. Do I need the center point? Not really. Let me think about this for a second. So we got the radius of those points. The center. Oh, one thing I haven't properly learned yet is what do we mean by the angle of the x-axis? So this is what I don't understand yet. So we've got if I make this negative 45, what happens? Something broke. Yes, yes. I have to finish writing the function, I know. Something broke. Okay, here we are. Nothing? Really? I am surprised by that. Maybe I shouldn't be. Maybe it only works on ellipses. Ah, okay. Yes, that's right. So that is going to be irrelevant for the time being, because I'm assuming that it's a circular arc that I'm drawing between these 3 points. So, oh, this is a brief tangent here. In a few ways, eventually it might make sense to let's not hedge with these words here. Could implement different drawing methods with def method. Dispatch on keyword or on shape of the args. I don't know yet. Point is, since there are so many different approaches to an arc, you can shape the arguments passed in a little bit and dispatch it differently, I suppose. But we begin with this one, and I want to try and get something that I can use. That'll be my goal. If I only yeah, okay. So the move here with a relative arc makes this is irrelevant. I'm just focused on this. This is the only thing I care about right now. I am going to, so I can get these 2 points of data from this function here, which calculates the radius given those 3 points. Perfect. The start point, technically this here can be considered the start point P1. So I can use that to my advantage. That's perfect. The end point is a little bit harder because it does change depending on a few different things. So now how do I go about that? So let's see, how can I do this? Right, so if I know that the radius of the circle is 50 and I ask for the point 50, 50, that's in the bottom quadrant there, but what I need help visualizing this actually. So let's draw this SVG / color element stroke pink stroke width 1. And we're going to make a circle. We're going to translate it 225 SVG / circle, and it's going to be of radius 50. Is that going to work? Almost. What happened? Oh, the radius is 50, so this is 250. First off, it looks like it should be here. Okay, and the fill here has to be none, explicitly. fill field none. Okay, so that is a little hard to see actually. Sir gray, Gary gray. Okay, perfect. That's good enough. Okay, so that circle, right, is the circle that is defined by, right, so this 50-50 here is a circle 50. That's relatively straightforward, but if so this relative end here means that from the starting position of the arc, pick a point 50-50, right? So if I do instead a point that is (0.0001 and 1, will that fill in most of the circle? It's not totally right. It's, if I make this -1, really? Huh. That surprises me. Yeah, so 100, 0 makes sense. Relative to the start of the arc, give me the point, the end point that is at relative to the start, 0 in the y direction and 100 in the x. That does nicely give you that whole thing. Now, if I go, give me 50 in the y, what happens? See, so this, okay, so it changes. So the radius is now bigger than the specified radius, right? Like if I make this 1, 1, okay, so if I give it 0, 0, it is not correct. If I give it 1, 1, it doesn't matter. Interesting. I wonder if I could use this to my advantage. No, it probably... Okay, so doing this will always land me with... That's not going to work because... yeah. Right, it'll always give me half circles at whatever size. Okay, so that's cool to know, but that's not going to be helpful to me because I don't want half circles every time. I want I want an arc that goes through 3 points. I'm gonna get up and stretch, grab a glass of water, and think about this, because this is complex. Be right back. All right, let's see, what can we do here? I missed part of the problem because you helped. Ugh, 1 second. We got a little bit of banning to do here. Mike, I'll explain the half circles thing in just a second. I'm just trying to get rid of some messages that I don't need here. The computer's failing me. So the half circles thing I can demonstrate in just a second. So I realized that another bot, yeah, so I'm working on it. My chat thing is loading a little slowly. I'm doing my best. Let me see here. Here we go. Ban, please. Let's see if that worked. It's weird. Like, I don't know if I mean, bots suck, obviously, but oh, come on. Sorry, this is distracting me for a moment. I run my OBS and my chat thing on not on my main computer here. The problem is my computer kind of chugs along. Oh, come on, that's not the button I clicked. Twitch rolled out an update and botched it. Oh. See, here I am sitting thinking that this is just, so I'm not running on like the most high-end computer in the world. Where's the ban button here? Ban, please. Sorry, I'm a little distracted here, obviously. Okay, I think my computer will Yikes. Not an issue on my end, eh? Well, I'll take your word for it, and we'll see. Well, so I'm clicking the ban button, and it doesn't seem to actually be doing anything, so let me go ahead and do one of these. Banned. There we go. Okay, we got there. Boy, oh boy. Perfect. Okay, I think we're good. I think so. I clicked the ban button like a bunch of times, and now maybe it's just finally whatever. Okay, where was I? Half circles. So, think I'm good. Awesome. Thanks for letting me know. Appreciate that. I weirdly, like, bots are awful, but I kind of wonder if it's like a sign that slowly this channel's getting a little bit of attention. I have no idea if that's how, I don't know how people who make bots target things. Maybe it's purely I mean, it makes sense. Oh, this channel's live but only has a few views. We'll spam it there. Nah, I don't know what I'm talking about. It's weird getting bots though. Okay. All I'm saying about this half circle thing here, probably target based on viewers and stream schedule, I would guess. Yeah, that does make a bit of sense. Especially like that particular bot was related to quote unquote getting famous, so probably they don't target streams greater than a certain size because it wouldn't make sense even as a desirable thing at that point. Okay, so what this half circles thing here, what I've got going here is this, pardon me, the first two values here, this 50 and this 50, are the radius in the x direction and the radius in the y direction. But what I've discovered was that ignoring these three values for a minute, this x and this y position are the point that you're kind of saying that's the end point of the arc, or it is going to be the end point of the arc. But what it'll do is fudge the radius if you pick a point that's not on the actual circle. So let me explain what I mean here for a minute. So this is 50 and this is 50, and I'm asking for a point relative to the start of the arc that's at 100x and 0y. So if I save this, nothing will change because this is the 0 point and the radius of the whole circle is 50, 50, so it's this here. And then I'm just asking for relative to the start, 100 in the x direction and 0 in the y, which is right here. But if I were to change this to 200 without changing the radius, look at what it does. It gladly gives me that new point way out there, but it completely ignores the radius value, right? So this radius is obviously not 50 anymore. It is 100. It's doubled. So what I briefly did here was change the assumed radius to be that exactly, and now if I give it any endpoint, it'll happily draw to any endpoint, but it will not do anything other than half circles, right? Like it's not giving me, like if I were to only change the endpoint here, I have no control whatsoever over the actual shape of this curve anymore. Does that make sense? So that's what I was just saying. I was briefly wondering if I could sort of cheat things a bit here. Yeah, so if they're different here, it does indeed change things. You get really weird sort of things. What I'm trying to do is create so here, right, you have different, so you've got, like you're saying, the different radius, and it just changes the shape of things quite a bit. It's kind of weird looking, which is not a problem, it just is confusing, right? But so changing the ratio of these, actually you could do it as a ratio. That's kind of cool. That's pretty neat. Yeah, so if you make it sort of, yeah, maybe there's something there. So but what I am trying to do though is make a function here that builds a valid arc string that is a circular arc that runs through the 3 points that you give it. So with that temporary restriction, I do need both x and y radius to be the same, and I need a different, and then I need to figure out how to properly control the what the radius is here so that the arc does mathematically correctly pass through the point there. So even if I do, okay, so the circle case is this, right? It's a half circle every time, which isn't, sometimes if you draw an arc you don't want a half circle, you want a quarter circle or some arbitrary shape, right? Even if I were to do it by ratio of an ellipse, the same problem is occurring where I'm getting exactly half of the ellipse. I, as a user, changing only the end point and technically the start point here, and the ratios of these things, like leaving them that way, I only get exactly half of the whole thing, which is not enough control. Not sure if I'm making sense anymore. I'm doing my best, but I'm kind of thinking out loud a little bit too. So, and so that's not a total win. I have to figure it out yet. So for example, let's try 50-50 here. Yeah, the magical equation, yeah, that I'm working on, that does give me a 3. Yes, that's more or less right. I mean, it's not actually magical, but at the end of the day, that's the idea. So I have a few functions built in, or that I have from a different library, right? So I have, if we look over at the REPL here, this here, radius from points, calculates the circle's radius for the circle that passes through any points. So the circle that will pass through 0, 0, 50, 50, and 100, 0 has a radius of 50. But I can give this weird points, like it doesn't have to be nice even numbers. As long as they don't end up on a line, there we go. This has calculated the radius of the circle that would pass through those points. I just need to draw that, if that makes any sense. So, oh, actually, I can make one thing a little easier first for a moment. Let's make a function here, P1, P2, P3. Let's do all of this, but it just draws a circle, so I don't have to worry about any weird arc stuff just for a second. For debugging purposes, this is probably useful. Okay, so there's the radius, and the center is going to be G/ center from points. Yeah. Okay. Then I can actually just I can call translate to let me first of all, found a Stack Overflow answer that has some equations that might be helpful. Yeah, sure. Go ahead and post the link. It's possible that I've seen them before, but hey, no problem. Feel free to post them up. Let's have a look here. Find an arc. Let's have a look. I have a sneaky suspicion that I've actually read this particular question and answer already. But maybe not. It's loading. Actually, I have a kind of cool idea here. How do I want to do this? Let's do it like this. Let's do G. Yeah. Okay, but P1 has to be, how does this work again? Conj 1 1 0. Yeah. Yeah, P1, P2, P3 is map conj 0 conj 0 of P1, P2, P3. Yes, that makes sense. Right, so translate is just is drop last. Yeah. Yeah. So I can do translate drop last C. Oh, actually, let me just do it this way. C is just drop last of this. R is also drop last of that. The reason I'm doing drop last is because these functions, radius from points and center from points, return 3D point values, and currently I'm only working in 2D, and I'm at the moment a little too lazy to do it properly. So I'll figure it out. I haven't looked at the link you sent yet because, as it turns out, my laptop is chugging along rather slowly. Let me just, let's see here. It does look promising though. Let me just search it. Algorithm to find an arc, its center, radius, and angles. That should probably lead me to the thing here. Perfect. Yep, there we go. So, thanks for that link, Mike. I appreciate that. Let's see what we have here. Yeah, given those 3 points, how can I find an arc that begins at A, ends at C, and passes through B? This is exactly the thing I'm trying to set up, so it's in the exact realm of what I need. If it's helpful, then great. If it's not, then no biggie. Well, links and stuff like that that are in the realm are always appreciated. Thanks. And yeah, if it's not, then I move right along. But this here, you are totally right to say that this is relevant. Given 3 points A, B, C, this picture here, this is exactly what the interface I'm trying to get to. I do already here have this function here, radius from points already gives me this, and D here is the center point, which I am calculating from this. So I already have some of this done, as it were. Yeah, so this here, this is the thing that is going to be a little broken in my current implementation. Thomas here is correct. The circle is well defined as long as the points are not on one line. And that, if you think about it, that makes obvious sense. And of course R equals R prime. That is, so this is true for a circle-based arc, which is exactly what I am working on. And I don't think, for right now, I'm not interested in the angles between R and R prime. I might be later. That's like a, I guess you could call it a sweep angle kind of thing. But for the time being, that's not, I'm not going to worry about it at the moment. So get the coordinates, calculate midpoints of lines, find slopes of lines, construct lines running through the midpoints, perpendicular, A, B, B, C, perpendicular between those. Oh, the intersection of that will be D, right? Yeah. Okay, so I have calculating radius and angles is now trivial with center point D. That's pretty much accurate. That's a good point. Center of the circle is equidistant. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, so well, so as it turns out, not having read through thoroughly everything there, most of the stuff in there is already implemented by these functions here, which I had from another library that I don't have on GitHub. So we're in a good spot so far. I'm going to finish out this function here kind of as a visual debugger type thing. The whole idea being I'm going to make a little render that shows the exact circle and the 3 points along it that I provided. That'll make some actual sense in a moment once I finish this function. So translate to the center a circle of radius r, and then just draw translate to P1. Oh, I have to, well, that's fine. Drop last P1. Circle radius 2. P2. P3. Will it work? Let's find out. Let's try in the REPL first of all. Circle by points. Let's give it 0, 0. 50, 50, 100, 0. Wrong number of arguments passed to circle by points. That is because I passed them as one list, and that's not what I need to do. Don't know how to create Why is that? Huh. My brain is not quite firing on all cylinders today, you know? But hey, I actually don't mind. It's sometimes fun to just write some code, get some errors in, slowly debug little bits. It still feels nice to work that way, you know, even if it's not like the theoretical maximum that your brain can do. I'm not sure I can achieve that all the time anyway. All right, let me get rid of most of this. Let's do it the safe way here. And take one of these out, build that. Let's have a look. Oops. Okay, so there's an issue with probably okay, that does nothing because it's not doing anything, of course. Let me see what happens if I do P1, P2, P3. What's the shape of the data there? Okay, so that is correctly adding on to each of those the 0 value, so we're good there. Now let me see what R looks like. There we go. We're running into a problem right here. Okay, so that is probably because, well, if I undo the drop last part of that, if I just do it like this, what does that look like? Okay. Oh, right, so I'm being really silly. C is a point, R is just a radius, so that makes total sense that that would be wrong because it doesn't, it's a single, it's not a list, it's just a value. Just a number, I should say, to be a little more accurate there. Okay, so that translates there, that's that, that's that. Will this work now? Let's find out. All right, we've got a group of things, and then we can render them out. Sweet. Yeah, some days are just off days for developing. I've woken up one morning, looked at my code, and just stared blankly, running WTF. I've had a few of those times too. So, I don't know if you have experience in jobs outside of dev work at all, but I come from an engineering background. I don't mean computer engineering, I mean mechanical. So I did like SolidWorks and CAD modeling and stuff, and there's a ton of similarity between doing complex assembly modeling and certain types of programming. And the same feeling happens to me some days. Like you open up this complex SolidWorks file that is like an assembly of assemblies of assemblies, and some of the assemblies have links to other assemblies, and like you just stare at it like, I know all I need to do is move this post 3 inches to the right. How do I do it? So the same mental feeling pops up. I think it's very likely that that comes up in basically every type of knowledge-based job you could ever come up with, you know? Only ever worked as a dev since you got out of university, then oddball jobs before that. Well, yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. Just appealing to the potential that you know exactly what I mean. My only point is, I would imagine that WTF feeling probably comes up in any kind of office sort of job you could think of. I know for sure it happens in engineering and design. You know, the human brain is not a perfectly functioning machine, right? So I think it's pretty much inevitable that you get those days. I have no problem with it. Let's see here, color element. Is that gonna work? Fill, none. Stroke, gray. Stroke width, 1. Oops. Is that gonna work? Oh, it does work. Yeah, okay. Right? So this G tag has no fill. Okay, so that looks like it can work. I kind of want to see how that looks in this environment here. Heard of stories like that from all kinds of people who do all kinds of jobs. Makes for great stories. Usually it makes for great stories. I find no, you're right. You're totally right. It, like, at the very least, it makes for like, can you believe that that happened? And then everyone's like, I can't believe we did it that way, and everyone goes wild. It's a fun time. Life is crazy. Life is wild. I'm pretty okay with that though. Okay, now let's use this circle by points function. Let's have some fun with it. Let me comment this. Wait, no, I'll leave that there just for kicks. 10, 10. A? What? What did I do? That's not true? Why is it doing that? Give me a second here. This is things are going buck wild over here. Okay, let's see. Color element sir, or dear compiler, it does exist? Probably this is need to refresh. Okay, that tentatively went away. I'm theoretically happy with that for the time being. Okay, good. All right, let's try that bad boy out. Let's draw. Let's go ahead and draw a circle, SVG / circle by points. Let's draw a circle through 100, 100, 150, 120, and 200, 200. Let's see if this works. Oh, it's massive. It also didn't draw. There we go. That is at least not an error. Okay, cool. We have a function that draws circles, but I thought it would draw little point helpers there, but it doesn't seem to. It only draws. Oh wait, circle. It's only drawing one circle? Why is that? I think it's probably related to the color element function here. K-props and content, right? Is that going to be the difference? Let's find out. Hey, still giving me problems and I don't know why. There we go. Okay, now we see the points there. Okay, cool. All right, so let me imagine a situation where I'm drawing through point 200, 200, 250, yeah, 250, and then 300, 200. that should overlap this. We've got a point here, point here, point there. Oh man, I'm happy with that. That worked out really well. And now for figuring out how to, how to make, basically all I want is something that's arc by points and just stops drawing the circle after this point so that it shows, you know, whatever. So let me come up with a test circle that's a little cooler, maybe. 225 to 38. It's gonna, oop. Cool. Okay, so that is kind of the arc I want to go for here. Just from here along this to here. And to declutter a little bit, I'm just going to delete that other circle because I have a better function now. There we go. I'm happy with that. This here, I definitely want to build in some, like, what should I call it? Like visual debugging tools or visual debugging flags that let me design whole figures and models, 2D, 3D diagrams, and I can toggle a dynamic variable that will show all kinds of extra data. So the points passed into the function, the center points of different objects, the bounding box, but you can like checkbox it on and off so that when you render some final document, it shows only the finished object and the required dimensions. But during building, like while you're designing and prototyping, it'd be really cool to have a little flag that lets you show those sorts of things. So I like this as an example for that sort of thing. That'd be cool. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. So we've got this function. I happen to know that if I make this 120, 20, it'll end right there, but not be the correct shape, of course. And the radius of this, what is the radius of that? Oh, I could have actually just looked in the HTML of it as well. It's basically 66. What happens if I do copy that, do this, well, maybe it's as simple as that. Maybe I've just made my life really easy. Okay, so this, it looks like this. For the simplified case of using circular arcs, I know for sure that Rx and Ry have to be equal, obviously, otherwise it's not a circle. If I say that the user must know that the arc will always be drawn from P1 through P2, ending at P3, then I can ignore these three values here. This makes no difference for circles anyway, so this can be 0 or it can be arbitrary values. It will not change anything, so I can ignore it. This flips the small or large arc, but I want to use the small arc as the default there. And this one flips the, like, it basically will mirror the small arc kind of thing. This is sort of how to read that about the line between the start and end. And then this and this are the relative positions, and I could, yeah, they're the relative positions. Sweet. Okay. I'm actually surprised that that was that straightforward. All I have to do now is put it into the arc string function and then try it out. And that should work, right? One potential thing that might not work is it, with the assumptions I've provided, it might not be physically possible to, well, I'll test that in a minute, but it might not actually be possible to draw without changing these flags. It might not be possible to draw some arcs. So I might have to have some conditional logic in there to flip those flags from 0 to 1. But I will test that out in a bit, because what I want to do first, looks good, man. Congrats on getting the feature running. Yeah, thanks. I mean, so it's a start. Gotta get a few things done, but it feels good to get those things in there. So yeah, thank you. Okay, arc string. Ignoring that. Circle by points is useful. I'm gonna keep it there for now. This is sufficient technically for building out the string. Yes, right. I suppose. Can actually do this. Okay. That is that. It's the correct approach here. Let's build the string. Arc string like this is going to be actually need it to be absolute. Yeah? Well, let's have a look here. String, apply string to interpose space to the list of these things, which is m concat m. Wait a sec, let me see here. Cons. Can I cons one onto this? What happens? Yeah, it does work. So I can just cons, I think, m onto the list, which is p1. I think that'll work. I don't know if that's like the cleanest way to write that. Seems a little weird. I mean, it's fine, but I also do need to slap a new line on there. Oh, no, I'll do it this way. Okay, there we go. Start arc string. Actually, let me do it this way. M string, A string. Yes, perfect. Okay, so this arc string is going to be a little different, and it's just going to be, here I want to do apply string to interpose space, and here I'm just going to create a list of the things. I'm going to use absolute in this case because P1, P2, P3 I did absolute for the circle by, so I'm going to use absolute again there. It's easy to change it if I don't like it that way, so I'm not too concerned about it. Which means now, since I have the radius, I just do radius, radius, and then I do 0, 0, 0, and then here all I need is the first P3, second P3. Actually, I can do this. This might be a little cleaner if I concatenate. There. So that's M string and A string, and then I can terminate the let, and then here I call path with the string, which is apply string, interpose new line character to M string to the list, M string, A string. And I think that's a function that'll work. We'll find out. If I do, let's see here, arc, hey, that's a path with a bunch of stuff in it, which is the scientific way to describe it. Okay, so to test that out, let's save this so it tangles. We're going to refresh this. We'll have to refresh it again, but that's okay. If I comment this out, does it disappear? Yes, yes, yes. I don't know why the color element thing keeps coming up as an issue. I'll have to look into that, but I'll do it off stream. That doesn't work because it's not rendering anything at all. It's trying to, okay, there we go. Now, instead of calling svg/path with this string, I want to call svg/arc with the same set of points that I've got up there, which is 200, 200, 225, 238, and 320, and 220. And I want to see if it works. We've got nothing. Okay. I could work with that. Why is that not showing me anything? Let's have a look. Is it rendering but it doesn't have any stuff on it, so it's invisible? No, that's not it. It's just not there. Okay, let's try refresh the browser just to make sure. Well, that doesn't seem to be the problem. That's a mild surprise. What would be the reason for that? Well, okay, let me... Let's comment that out. Okay, there's nothing at all. Okay. If I just do a circle Okay, so things are rendering. I mean, kind of. There's just nothing there. Let me see. Okay, so there is a... Oh. No. Move to... Okay, so it's there. There's just something wrong. Really, eh? Let me change my tune here a little bit. Let's actually try that, and we'll make it 120, 20. Still not rendering. Okay. Well, we're in the ballpark. We're just not quite there yet. Oh, here we've got a problem. This is invalid. Ah, okay. That's a solvable problem. I mean, most problems are solvable, just sometimes harder than other. I don't know what I'm talking about. Why did it add zeros on there? Oh, yes. Because, okay, so right here I added zeros onto all the points, which is necessary for this. Let me just fix that by doing this, and that should fix the problem. Right, we now do not have 3D points going into 2D contexts, so that is a theoretically fine change to make. Let's refresh this. Okay, close this, zip back to the normal. Okay, let's uncomment this, save that. Yeah. Oh, okay, there we go. We are in the money. I'm happy with that. Okay, so let me just fill rule, even odd is fine, fill none. Does that line up? It does indeed. Okay, this is sweet. So let me now try to draw a new circle and just... So what I want to do is actually draw basically the same circle. The only thing I want to do is move this point kind of up here. So that's going to be... We'll leave it at 225 in the x, but what we need to do is actually do 200 minus 38. Because I'm lazy, I'm going to just have the computer give me the answer there. So this should be 162. And we should see basically the same circle, but this point is just up here. I think that'll be correct. I was off by a bit, but the idea is valid. Why is that wrong? Oh, because it wasn't, yeah, no. That it would have been right if this point were on the same line as this, but it's not. So 162 is not totally accurate. It'll be even higher. Ooh, we're close. Here I am just guessing numbers for no important reason. Okay, there we go. So we're pretty close to the same circle. What I'm testing now is what'll happen with this arc implementation if I give these points in. So I think it actually won't work because the arc I want to be drawn is from this point here up through this point and down here. So it's the larger arc. And I'm currently ignoring the flags here for larger, smaller arcs. So what I think will happen is it'll correctly draw to the end point here, but it won't draw, I think it'll draw some weird, it'll probably draw this arc is what I'm guessing will happen. I don't know for sure though. But I suspect this won't render the way I want it to. Okay, so I was almost right. It didn't render, it rendered correctly, but obviously the wrong side here. If I were to inspect this element and just manually change the path data here, the first 0 stays 0. This one, if I change it to a 1, okay, so I need to change the 1 and I lost it. I need to change both flags, and then I get the correct one. So, gotta go to the washroom again, and then I'll start tackling that problem. All right, let's see here. I have an idea for handling that problem, but I don't want to say it because I'm curious what you come up with. Yeah, I actually don't have an idea yet. I have to think about it. So what do I do? My head's going to using some path length thing to determine if the middle, like if P2 is oh boy, path length. If I'm just trying to think what would be true when the middle point is on the larger side that would not be true when it's on the shorter side. And I'm thinking about line lengths between points and stuff like that. Nothing clear is coming to mind at the moment. Feel free to share if you want. Feel free not to as well. That's totally cool. I'm just muddling through, as you can tell, at the moment. Right, so we know like the max total distance that P1 and P3 can be away from each other is 2 times the radius. So we know it's a half circle if and only if P1, P2 distance equals the diameter. That actually is technically a case where things are ambiguous, right? You never know, like you can't know just by math which side the point is on, or like which, wait, what am I talking about? Does it matter? Could I cheat and always make it 2 radiuses, right? Where I have 2 arcs, I mean. I could always draw it as 2 arcs, an arc between P1, P2 with the same radius as another arc from P2 to P3. But I don't want that. I want it to be 1. Getting angles, you could maybe do something like angle between P1, P2 plus P2, P3. If that's greater than 180, you want to draw big. Not sure about the math though. I think actually that's a good point. I don't know why I wasn't thinking angles. Let's see here. P between P1, P2 plus P2, P3. If that's greater than 180, then it means you want to draw on the large side. Yes, that's absolutely true. Because if it's exactly 180, you've got the ambiguous case, right, where it's a half circle. If it's greater than 180, guaranteed, that's totally right, because yep, that's a good point. Okay, so that'll do it. Is there a way that I can be lazy and do a... So I'm wondering if I could do it instead of angles, I could just do by line distance between points, but I don't know if that is safe, because no, it's not. Because you could have a situation where the line length between those is, yeah, no, I don't think that that's good. Yeah, so that's what I meant by ambiguous case, the perfect semicircle, right? You'd have angle P1, P2 plus P2, P3 equals 180, and in that case you have no possible clue as to which way you actually want it to be drawn. The only thing you do is say by some heuristic it always picks the first, and then the problem there is the user might just have to fudge one of the things like a 0.001 away to get it to render the way they want, which isn't ideal, but it's a starting point, and it's better to have something and then to tweak it than to have nothing. So but lazy me doesn't want to do a lot of hard math right now. So do I have functions that do angle stuff already? I don't remember. point on line, radius from points, center from points. I have to make a little note for myself here. This is so this is actually dangerous. I have a situation here, well, dangerous. I have a situation here where this function can totally fail, where I'm doing a check here, point on line, if the cross product is exactly 0, then you know that the point is on a line. At that point, you could look at the position of y on P2. If it's less than y on P1, then draw top and bottom otherwise. Actually, that's a great point. You're totally right. So it's just, yeah, that's just a simple, yeah, that's a great point. There, you could make it completely unambiguous that way. At least in the, yeah, no, that works. That totally makes sense. I was saying though, right, I have this cross product situation and there's no chance, like, cross product takes 2 points. I think they have to be 3D. Oops, yeah. Oh, it even says it right on there. Silly me. I guess there are situations where it can be exactly 0, the cross product, but it's rare, and as soon as, see, this is the reality. As soon as you have a float somewhere in here, they all end up as floats, or mostly, and it's not true that these are equal, even though mathematically they are, right? But programmatically they're not equivalent. So this is basically never going to be true, and so you might end up with situations where you can get divide by 0 errors through here. You can have your square roots, all things can mess up, so it's broken and not safe. The comparison of equal with the cross product will basically never be true. You need to use a nearly kind of function. There we go. Okay, so I'm lazy with angles. Let me see here. Forge. I have angles stuff already done. Well, doesn't look like I'm gonna get away with being lazy. That's kind of bad timing. I don't have a lot of time left. Maybe I can... If I don't feel like doing it, you could write up a formula in Clojure. You can just port into my code. I mean, I don't feel like doing it right this second. I have no problem actually doing it. Nevertheless, if you want to go ahead and write one up and practice and do some Clojure on your own and contribute it in that way, that's totally cool. You can go right ahead. I think you're following me on GitHub, and you could use the issue thing in GitHub if you want. I won't complain if you add something or if you contribute in that way, but I don't need you to. Like, don't feel compelled if you don't want to. It really is a my brain's turning off kind of thing, you know? If you get a free minute, you'll give it a shot. It'll be good practice. Well, cool. You go right ahead. That would be sweet. Okay. Let me just see here. My computer's... Oh, there we go. Let's see what basic math tells me. Tan, all that stuff. Mathtopia. Yeah. Yeah, in 3D that's one thing. In 2D is even easier technically. Yeah, you know what? This is actually a pretty good time for me to call it. I have to go... I always have a few chores to do, and then I go to the gym at around 4:30 usually, so... You know what? I am gonna call it for the day. I had a pretty great day, all things considered. I'm really happy that I have this function working. I'm happy with myself today. It was a good day. I got a bit of work done here. Let me just go ahead and try to add that back into my GitHub here for a minute. Take it easy, enjoyed the stream. Actually starting to learn a lot and understand the code I'm seeing on your project. Well, I'm really glad that you're tuning in and learning some stuff. That's really great. I largely start this for my own learning as well and my own routine, right? Doing this stream forces me to keep up with things and do things regularly. I mean, if you really watch my streams, there's fumbling around, there's not knowing what to do next, there's all kinds of things that I'm not perfect with, but the steady progress and the improvement on the project as I go does really feel good, and I'm really glad that you're gaining some value from it. So that's fantastic. I'm really happy about that. And in general, it's just nice that people tune in and watch. If there's other people watching this at some other time, like, even that is really appreciated. It's fantastic. So I'm glad I can be some small part of people's enjoyment and learning and stuff like that. So enough for me. I'm gonna get going. Have a good one.